In almost every part of the world, success wears the same watch. Not the most expensive, not the rarest, the most recognized. A Rolex. Walk into a hedge fund office in Manhattan, a recording studio in Atlanta, the paddock at a Formula One race in Monaco, a championship tennis match at Wimbledon. Different cities, different cultures, different ambitions. And yet, the same watch keeps appearing. Not because people planned it, but because, over time, the world quietly agreed on it. You don't need to understand watches to understand Rolex. You only need to understand ambition. Because when someone puts on a Rolex, they're rarely checking the time. They're making a statement about arrival, about credibility, about achievement, about identity. Rolex doesn't just measure minutes, it measures milestones. And across culture, money, sport, and power, it has become the single most recognizable symbol of success on Earth. Rolex produces approximately 1.1 million watches every year. That generates an estimated $10 to $11 billion in annual revenue. That makes it the largest luxury watchmaker in the world. But size alone doesn't explain its influence. What makes Rolex unusual is not scale. It's consistency. Across continents, across income levels, across professions, Rolex signals the same thing: success. Not fashion, not trend, not insider knowledge. Success. In Manila, a Rolex celebrates a promotion. In London, it marks a career milestone. In New York, it signals authority. In Lagos, it represents transformation. In Dubai, it reflects arrival. Very few luxury objects mean the same thing everywhere. A Ferrari does not mean the same thing in Tokyo as it does in Paris. A Birkin bag does not carry the same message in New York as it does in Seoul. But a Rolex does. Because Rolex didn't just build watches, it built a universal social signal. One that compresses ambition, discipline, money, status, and identity into a single, instantly recognizable object. The Submariner began in 1953 as a professional dive watch. It was meant for people who worked underwater. But its cultural transformation came in 1962. That was the year Sean Connery wore it as James Bond in Dr. No. Suddenly, the Submariner wasn't just a tool. It became cinematic shorthand for masculine competence, danger, seduction, and global sophistication. In the Bond films that followed, that watch became inseparable from the character. James Bond didn't wear jewelry. He wore equipment. And the Submariner became the equipment of power. That single casting decision permanently embedded Rolex into spy culture and masculine identity. To this day, the Submariner remains the most recognizable luxury watch in the world. Then came the Daytona. Originally designed for professional race car drivers, it spent years as a slow seller. Until Paul Newman. His personal Rolex Daytona sold at auction in 2017 for $17.8 million. The most expensive Rolex ever sold. That single auction transformed everything. Collectors began hunting vintage Daytonas. Waiting lists exploded. Market prices soared. And a watch once overlooked became the most sought-after steel sports watch on Earth. So influential was that one watch that an entire category of Daytona dials is now called the Paul Newman Daytona. Not named by Rolex, named by culture.
Then there is the Datejust.
Worn by Winston Churchill, Dwight Eisenhower, and countless world leaders. The Datejust became the uniform of diplomacy and political authority. Understated, balanced, permanent. Then came the day date. Crafted exclusively in precious metals, worn by presidents, Lyndon B. Johnson, Ronald Reagan, Gerald Ford. The day date didn't represent luxury, it represented legitimacy. And interestingly, the most common Rolex in the world is neither the Submariner nor the Daytona. It is the Datejust, the single most purchased Rolex globally. It appears at promotions, at graduations, at weddings, at anniversaries. It is the everyday uniform of achievement. On Wall Street, Rolex functions as a professional uniform. Warren Buffett wears a Datejust. Jamie Dimon wears a day date. Paul Tudor Jones favors Submariners and GMT Masters. Across trading floors and boardrooms, Rolex dominates. Because in finance, image is not vanity. It is survival. Flash suggests volatility. Understatement suggests control. Rolex sits perfectly between the two. It communicates success without spectacle, authority without arrogance. Rolex embedded itself into elite sport, tennis, Formula One, endurance racing, golf. It became the official timekeeper of Wimbledon, the US Open, the Australian Open, Formula One, Le Mans, and the PGA Tour. And at the center of this stood Roger Federer. For more than 2 decades, Federer wore Rolex during some of the most historic matches in tennis history. The 2007 Wimbledon final against Rafael Nadal. The 2008 Wimbledon final, often described as the greatest match ever played. When Federer lifted trophies, the Rolex crown appeared beside victory. Over time, that image repeated again and again. And slowly, Rolex became embedded into sporting memory. In hip-hop, Rolex carries a completely different meaning. It does not symbolize tradition. It symbolizes transformation. Across decades, Rolex appears repeatedly in rap lyrics. Drake says, "I got a new Rolex, I don't feel no pressure." Lil Wayne says, "Rolex so heavy, I can't lift my wrist." Future says, "Rollie on my wrist, diamonds up and down my chain." Migos say, "I got a Rollie on my wrist." Travis Scott says, "Rolie poly on my wrist." In rap culture, Rolex compresses survival, ambition, escape, and triumph into a single visual code. A symbol that requires no explanation. In cinema, Rolex appears again and again as instant character signaling. James Bond, The Wolf of Wall Street, American Psycho. In each case, Rolex becomes shorthand for authority, for ambition, for financial dominance. And then there is scarcity. Rolex produces over 1 million watches every year, yet demand vastly exceeds supply. Waiting lists, dealer allocations, purchase history requirements. Rolex transformed buying into pursuit, and pursuit intensifies desire. In 1953, Rolex explorers reached the summit of Everest. In 1960, a Rolex prototype descended nearly 11 kilometers into the Mariana Trench. In aviation, the GMT Master became inseparable from Pan Am pilots during the golden age of jet travel. Each moment embedded Rolex into human ambition, not as ornament, but as artifact.
Thanks for watching The Inner Margin. Like and subscribe.